2027, and wire transfers as listed for $218,998.48 for the period ending on July 21st, 2021. Council, anyone wish to pull an item or have questions on the consent agenda? Okay, hearing no items being pulled or questions on it, what is the desire of council?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Councilor Hicks, second by Councilor Rosman to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any debate on this item? Okay, hearing no debate, can we get a roll call, please?
Mayor Guerrero,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bertram,
Yes.
Councilor Tucci,
Yes.
Councilor Hicks,
Yes.
Councilor Farmer,
Yes.
Mayor, you have 5 yes votes.
Thank you, motion passes. Consent agenda is approved. Up next, we have our active agenda, which first item is budget amendment number 2. Consider adopting an ordinance amending the 2021 budget as presented. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, we have before you this evening the second budget amendment for the year. This reflects a combination of technical financial amendments that the finance director has put together, as well as some of the enhancement requests that council prioritized at previous budget workshops and finalized a list on July 6th workshop. Those have all been incorporated as per council's direction. This presents a full amendment for you this evening and open that up for final decision and discussion. Just a reminder to council, because budget amendments sometimes have effects across different cost allocated funds, if council does decide to pull any items off of tonight's action of this, finance director will need to revise the attachments, the full item, and bring it back for council action in a future meeting. Because some of the budget amendments, different items can have expenditure effects across multiple funds, and sometimes we need to review that. We can have to answer any questions.
All right, council, questions or comments on budget amendment number 2? Councilor Stucci, any questions or comments?
No questions or comments, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, no comments here, no questions, so I just have a comment on one of the items in the budget amendment. I am not gonna oppose it or pull it, but I am concerned the fact that we are technically funding a position through some funds that are not fully supporting the position itself from that specific fund that is being allocated. I'm not gonna oppose it, so just not happy with it. What is our council on this item?
Move to approve. This is Councilor Restucci.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilor Stucci, second by Deputy Mayor Morford to adopt an ordinance amending the 2021 budget as presented. Is there any debate on this item? Hearing no debate, can we get a roll call, please?
Councilor Farmer,
I have the same concerns as the mayor, but I will vote for it.
Councilor Hicks,
Yes.
Councilor Tucci,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bertram,
Yes.
Mayor Guerrero,
Yes.
Mayor, there's 5 yes votes.
Motion passes. Thank you, council. Up next, we have classification and compensation schedules. Consider adopting an ordinance updating the classification and compensation schedule as presented. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. It's just a quick follow-up note for roll call purposes. I have received a message from Chief Escalera that he's having trouble logging into the Zoom meeting. The city clerk can contact him outside or let a little, he is trying to get into the meeting. So this second item, this is the corresponding amendments to the classification and compensation schedule that council adopts as part of budget adoption. So as a result of your action on the prior item, this implements the corresponding amendments for our current classification and compensation schedule and reflects the three positions that were added under your previous action.
Hey, council, questions or comments on this agenda item? Councilor Tucci, questions or comments?
No questions or comments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So, Mr. Casey, this just updates, what the salary for every employee, is that correct? Based on what we did this year with, pay increases and cost, well, whatever increase we had. So I did see two different figures. One had the old salary amount and then the new salary amount, is that correct?
So what it's presenting essentially is the amendment that was adopted back in December that showed the old salary amounts for all positions as well as the new salary amounts. There aren't further changes being made, but there are to those salary amounts for the existing positions. But it does also, in the new amendment, reflect the three additional positions.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything further to clarify on that? Or is that summarizing it well?
Quite well. There is also an update to the city manager's salary that was actually passed on March 1st at that council meeting, but we didn't bring back the salary schedule for that. So it needed to be included. It should have been included in March. And then it's kind of confusing. I was out of town last week at a conference, and so technically all of the other attachments you have back there are just my old worksheets. So they shouldn't have actually been included, just so you know. You should have received Exhibit A that shows the new amount, but it's nothing wrong with having all the attachments for you to look at salary history, because they are in all of our packets. But that, I just keep a worksheet with a tab, and just every time, so I don't recreate something or lose something from before, I just copy a new one and then start it over so that I know what's still there from the last time. So there's just changes in the number of positions authorized for the three positions you just authorized in the budget amendment, and then changes to the salary for the city manager.
It was nice to see the old salary and then the new salary to kind of compare and contrast, so it was definitely helpful, so.
Okay.
It didn't hinder at all the information that we were getting, so appreciate that.
Yeah.
Council, additional questions or comments? Hearing none, what is the desire of council on this item?
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Councilor Hicks, second by Deputy Mayor Borsman to adopt an ordinance updating the classification and compensation schedule as presented. Is there any debate on this item? Hearing no debate, can we get a roll call, please?
Deputy Mayor Burisma,
Yes.
Councilor Tucci,
Yes.
Mayor Guerrero,
Yes.
Councilor Farmer,
Yes.
and Councilor Hicks.
Yes.
Mayor, there's 5 yes votes.
Thank you, motion passes. Up next, we have Allen Road Sewer Improvement. Consider approving a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a task force with HLA Engineering for the design of the Allen Road Sewer Improvement in the amount of $65,500. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This is a next step in a process and conversation that the Public Works Director and team brought forward to council earlier this year. Council is aware that Catholic Community Charities is planning a very large subdivision to go in single-family homes north of Allen Road. And as part of that process, initially envisioned having a sewer lift station and some other improvements right there in that area. Further analysis and review by city staff as well as the city engineering team identified an opportunity to leverage that project to make some broader improvements to the sewer infrastructure that serves that southeast portion of the city. And the Public Works Director brought that forward to council for discussion and consideration earlier this year, and council endorsed that approach. This is one of the first task orders coming out of that scope of work. This is more specific about updating a sewer line, a particular segment of the line, connecting Charities lift station with the outpost lift station. And that's probably the extent of my technical knowledge of it. I'm gonna defer any further technical questions to the Public Works Director if you have any.
Council members, questions or comments for this agenda item?
Just, the one that coming up to me is, this amount of $65,000, that was all part of the original scope that we talked about when we approved this, correct?
Sort of. The original scope we talked about with Catholic Charities was to take care of the lift station, the new lift station they're putting in, and then the upsizing of the piping to accommodate future flows coming in from the north. This segment is actually eliminating the lift station and outpost and turning that into a gravity line that comes down and connects to the new lift station with Catholic Charities. So the outpost, the owners of that property are paying for the decommissioning of the outpost lift station. Coming across the road, then their responsibility stops. That's where this starts. It takes us west and connects into the new Catholic Charities lift station. So about 830 feet of sewer main and 2 manholes.
Right, but when we talked about getting rid of all the lift stations and go completely gravity flow and that whole section of town, all of this was all part of the
This was all
consideration.
part of that, correct.
That's what I wanted to make sure of. Okay, thanks.
You bet.
Councilor Stucci, questions or comments?
No, sir, I had the same concerns as the deputy mayor, and so I was glad to hear my question was answered.
Okay, and I just have, one question. So this project is pretty much a go for Catholic. We're not putting improvements and they're gonna make the name back out. They are fully, going with this project, is that correct?
They are fully committed. Yeah.
Just making sure, because we got a huge lift station going in and improvements, and then if they back out the last minute, then we did all the improvements, and then we may not
Right.
see
Yeah.
the benefit of it, so I just want to make sure, okay. All right, any additional questions or comments from council? Hearing none, what is the desire of council on this item?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second. This is Councilor Restucci.
Okay, motion by Deputy Mayor Borisma, second by Councilor Restucci to approve a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a task order with HOA Engineering for the design of the Allen Road sewer improvements in the amount of $65,500. Is there any debate on this item?
No debate, Mr. Mayor, but I do have a question since you brought it up. If they did back out for whatever reason, Mr. Fisher, would the city be covered?
Well, if they decided to back out, like you mean as opposed to, if they decided not to do the development altogether,
Correct.
no work has taken place at the lift station and outpost, so if they backed out, then we obviously wouldn't have a project. If that were the case, the lift station would stay in place, the existing, lift station and outpost.
Thank you, sir.
Any additional debate? All right, can we get a roll call, please?
Councilor Farmer,
Yes.
Councilor Hicks,
Yes.
Mayor Guerrero,
Yes.
Councilor Stucci,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Burisma,
Yes.
Mayor, there's 5 yes votes.
Thank you, motion passes. Up next, we have ARPA request, discuss the, ARPA request, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, this was intended as a discussion item, given that council requested a little more background and also a little assistance with putting together potential ideas for the use of American Rescue Plan Act funding. Staff worked on some examples of potential uses based on some projects that we're starting to see emerge in other communities. And so we wanted to give you this to help jumpstart your discussion. And as Finance Director and I have indicated, I think at the last meeting, our thoughts were that as you have ideas or need technical assistance from council, or excuse me, from staff, and want to put that together, Director Charles is just back from a conference, and so, you know, we're available to meet with you one-on-one individually to brainstorm any ideas that you have and help put those together for you. Objective is, you know, kind of come back again in the workshops in August, and maybe to flesh these ideas out. No expectations tonight, just wanted to make sure that this came back before you for discussion, and then extend that offer to assist as you may wish.
Okay, council questions, on this, agenda item? Councilor Suchi, questions on this item?
No questions, Mr. Mayor.
So I want, the interim final rule, those are, says non-exclusive list of uses, so these are, items that are potentially able to get funding or covered through, is it ARPA, is that what we're, ARPA funds?
That's correct, sir.
ARPA funds, is that kind of like what we're looking at? These are some of the usable, areas that we have, I know they're pretty vague, so it's kind of tough.
Yeah, they gave us 39 pages, Director Alva managed to distill that down to about 2.5, of regulations, and these are some of the, example uses that, the U.S. Treasury Department described in their, interim final rules.
This is, and it says, expenses to improve efficacy of economic relief programs. So, I personally, unless you give an example, I'm not quite sure what would be one of those improvements that I guess you could do to make it more efficient. Is it like a software program to try to
Well,
make
if
it
there
more?
were some specific examples of that, I think in terms of efficacy of economic relief programs, so you may have a plan to try to provide targeted assistance based on the economic impacts, the negative effects from COVID on businesses. But you may need help in validating, the extent of the distress, the financial impacts on particular businesses. So being able to do effective outreach or data analysis and so forth, this would allow you to apply some of the funds to your administration and
Data can need you to kind of do some of the legwork and decide, where it is that, would make the most sense. And I really like the fact that it's kind of boiled down to 2 pages. Thank you for that. Because when we first got it, was a lot of pages, like, wow, this is gonna be tough to try to make, heads or tails of it, but this really kind of narrows it down quite a bit, and honestly, there's a lot of, areas that I think that we could make really good use of it. And I think I'm gonna have to sit down one of you guys and come up with some of my ideas, because I have some ideas, but I'm not sure if they'll even fall into any of these categories. So I appreciate all the effort put into trying to make it, for lack of a better word, dumb it down for us a little bit, because it's very complicated. So thank you for trying to summarize that.
And actually, the conference I was attending was the Association of Public Treasurers. And good news, I was appointed to the board, just so you know, so I'm on the executive board for the national organization. A room full of treasurers in my same size city, so, we were in a medium-sized city group. No one understood this. So it was a room full of people that none of us really had any idea of what we needed to do and how to do it. I ended up sharing that I had created this document for council, and really honestly, this was for me, because I needed to figure it out too. And I told anyone that wanted to have a copy of it to give me their card or come write their email address down, and I sent this to 30 people nationwide, who then started telling me they shared it with their mayor and their city administrator or their city manager. So this document is hopefully something that we can use as a tool to, at least like you said, start the conversation. What does this even mean? And everyone in that room has the same question: can we do this? Well, I don't know. Can we? So don't feel like you are alone in this. This is something everyone is facing, and including the staff, because honestly, you apply for a grant because you know you can fit the grant need. Then you go through the process, you're awarded the grant, and then you start the work. Well, this one, they gave you the money and you didn't know what you were doing. So it's altogether foreign to people in finance to get money first and say, go spend it. So just to let you know, this is something that everyone was feeling at the conference.
So I'm glad we're not alone in this. So
Not at all.
the samples definitely do help. Obviously, there's some great examples that you just put together, and then it does help a lot to kind of narrow down a little bit of at least my thinking of what we can potentially do with some of these funds. So thank you for doing that. Council members, questions, comments on this one?
I'm still confused, My concern is, this can be used for infrastructure, am I not correct also?
As we understand, the areas of infrastructure that are supported are primarily in water and sewer, wastewater systems, and towards health and safety kinds of improvements, things that would qualify under some of the existing EPA programs to improve water safety, water quality, safe disposition of stormwater and water. And then the other area of infrastructure that it can be used in is broadband, expanding broadband access. So upgrading areas that may have slower speed broadband or no broadband to the threshold, I think it's 100 megabytes per second upload and download. Projects that would move towards that. I know the school district, for example, is taking a hard look at broadband because they're also, there's other funds for schools in the same bill that allow them to pursue that for providing access to students.
Is it communications in general or just broadband?
Just broadband.
Can it also be used for tourism and the promotion of our city?
Not directly as we understand it, however, it can be used to assist businesses in the tourism sectors that have been hard hit by COVID and by the loss of revenue. So if you're wanting to assist them with making up for lost revenues, or that they've had to lay off staff in the hospitality sector, like hotels, restaurants, those kinds of things. I haven't seen specifically just tourism promotion in the sense of attracting new visitors, but you could look into that and see if maybe that could get fit in somehow under the economic assistance to the hospitality sector. That's another example where we're just not quite sure where the boundary is there unless.
It's actually G, aid to impacted industries, and it says provide aid to support safe reopening of businesses in the tourism, travel, and hospitality industries, and to business districts that were closed during the COVID-19 public health emergency, as well as aid for a planned expansion or upgrade of tourism, travel, and hospitality facilities delayed due to the pandemic.
So let's say a hotel was getting ready to expand and add rooms right before the pandemic hit. That took the revenue away from them. This program might allow you to award funds to enable the hotel to complete that expansion.
A specific question, and I've asked this question before. I think we're the only city in the valley that does not have their name and or logo on the water tower. I think that's probably a huge of interest to people coming through Sunnyside, that they can see our logo and they can see our name. I'm just wondering if these dollars can be shifted and funded to do something like that.
I don't know if that would meet that test. We probably have to inquire, might be able to talk with our congressional delegation, see if they've gotten any further clarification or U.S. Treasury.
And we would need to look at water and sewer infrastructure projects through EPA or DWSRF if that would be allowed use. If it was, it would fall under M.
Yeah.
And we do have some plans for water tower painting. We're not giving them up quite yet.
All right, appreciate
So
that.
we do have something in the works.
And along that would maybe even be signage coming into Sunnyside. Would kind of be some of the same idea there also.
Any additional questions or comments on this agenda item, the ARPA request?
So I have just kind of based on what Mr. Farmer was talking about, he's talking about tourism. The city of Sunnyside's been talking about for the last 5, maybe 6 years now, the possibility of a convention center. Is that something that can be applied to that? I mean, we've talked about it, it's been in the discussion.
If it had already been a planned expansion or upgrade of tourism, travel, and hospitality facilities, what we're seeing in most of these rules is already in the works, you know, a project on the books, and it's delayed as a result of the pandemic, then you may be able to apply these funds to it. I'm less certain whether or not we would be able to embark upon any planning and design for something like the convention center that we haven't already, you know, had slated to build. You just have to check into that.
Yeah, so it sounds like our pencils aren't quite sharp enough to be able to go 2 years back.
It may not be, yeah.
Okay, just curious on how that would all work out.
Usually with federal relief programs, if you are, you know, like with disaster recovery, this is essentially a type of disaster recovery. It's a medical disaster rather than a volcano or earthquake erupting, or volcano erupting. Usually they will pay to get you back to where you were, things that fix what was broken or damaged. And in this case, they may pay to restart things that have to be halted because of the pandemic, but they're usually going to be looking for a pretty clear nexus between the pandemic and the action you had to take to either delay or defer or let go or lay off before they'll consider that eligible for payment. But it's good questions to keep asking, because sometimes there's weather.
Okay, this item was just discussion, so unless there's additional questions, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Okay, hearing no further questions or comments, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is going to be the interim city manager selection process. Discuss the interim city manager selection process, and there might be some possible action. Mr. City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is kind of a continuation of the conversation that we began at the July 12th meeting. I'll be stepping down here in just a couple weeks, and council has begun considering a selection of a professional recruitment services firm to guide the city through a recruitment and hiring process. At the last meeting, there was discussion around possibly doing an interim appointment or some form of appointment, while that was under consideration or for time to be set. Council chose to postpone further consideration of a contract award and instead instructed that we bring back a discussion item for council to consider possible interim appointment, how that might go forward. This is tied kind of with the next item on the agenda, which was one of the firms that participated in that process, then offered to assist council with a possible assessment. So we kept those separate as two separate discussions. And you were setting the agenda.
All right, council, questions or comments on this agenda item? Councilor Stucci, questions or comments?
No questions or comments, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so basically today we're going to be considering moving to designate an interim city manager effective August 16th, and further to designate a subcommittee of council to negotiate the terms and duration of the appointment as interim city manager with a designated person. Obviously, there is at this point individuals interested, and we have received an application resume. So that is something for us to consider. Personally, I feel like extremely qualified for in some of the areas. I'm sure there's room for growth, like we all always have. And I think it's important for us to consider the second item that comes up next as far as assessment. So definitely give council a tool to be able to say, okay, 6 months, 9 months, a year from now, these are some of the areas that we looked at that might need some help, and have we been able to meet those areas? So personally, I feel like it would work. It's something that is going to be an easy transition from our current city manager, pretty easy flow, especially going into our budget season. It's going to be a little bit easier. The next challenge will be finding a replacement, obviously, for that position, which is going to be another process in itself. And I'm all for giving an opportunity, because obviously that is something that I feel is important. I do have my reservations in some areas, because obviously, it's something going from finance, which is great individual doing finance, you know, extremely smart and sharp in that area. Now dealing with a whole different set of, you know, rules and people and, you know, anything and everything you can think of. I'm sure you've probably seen part of it, Mr. Casey has dealt with it, so it's one of those things that I think is gonna be, a good experience, and hope, it works out extremely well, because I think you would definitely keep us, in check for a longer period of time. In the past, we seem to have had, 3 to 5 year tenures from city managers, and I'm really hoping that by having somebody internally, that we might get rid of that 3 to 5 year kind of landmine in a sense, because it seems to be a turnover. I know the cities haven't done it, and I'm really excited to see if that's something we can do here. So I'm in favor of this, so, that's my comment on this item. Council members, additional comments or questions on the interim city manager selection process?
Mr. Mayor, I would agree with your comments. Our Director of Finance has been acting city manager for periods of time, certainly not this long of a period. She has been involved in city government long enough where she understands it, she understands how it works, she knows the players here in town. I would wholeheartedly support, matter of fact, I'd even make a motion to start negotiations with her regarding this.
Let's wait until we get everybody an opportunity to speak, and then we'll call for a vote of this motion.
I'm in agreement with both of you. It's, she already knows the job, the basis of it. She already knows how we work, how the city works. And I'm all for hiring from within versus bringing somebody new in that's gonna have to start from scratch.
So, pardon me if I'm a little bit confused here. We're talking about an interim position right now for a number of months, correct? It's almost sounding as if we're talking about a permanent position here. So, at the risk of putting the cart before the horse, I guess we've got to be careful. So, in talking about an interim position, I think I'm 100% in agreement with that. I do think that there's got to be a vetting process and go through all of that. And so we'll have to talk about that at a later date. But I certainly think that Ms. Alba is qualified, especially as an interim, so I can support that. And then we'll move on to the next discussion of the permanent position at a later date. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here.
Councilor Stucci, questions or comments?
The deputy mayor makes a good point, and I agree. I support Miss Alba as an interim. You know, having made this decision many times, Mr. Mayor, in my almost 18 years on council, I can tell you that of all the managers we've had to choose from, she's the only one who's been an elected official before. So I like that idea. I like the fact that she understands the Open Public Meetings Act, the Public Records Act, that she's lived in the fishbowl that we lived in. So I support that. And I definitely want us to do a vetting process and have do the proper selection for a permanent city manager. However, right now, I think that she makes a great interim city manager, given her background as well as her current position as Finance and Admin Services Director.
I guess I agree with everyone. It's, I'm really hoping the interim turns into a permanent, but obviously there's, like everyone said, they really want to do a vetting process, and I'm definitely in support of that as well. So as of now, this is a discussion item, obviously. If council desires to make a motion, we can.
I will restate my motion. I motion to begin the process with Director Alba to become interim city manager and go through the process of negotiation.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion before us is to begin the process with Ms. Alba to begin to become interim city manager and start the negotiation process. We have a motion by Councilor, Farmer and second by Councilor Hicks. Is there any debate on this item? Actually, we've got Rachel go first, right? Ms. City Clerk, can we get a roll call, please?
Councilor Hicks,
Yes.
Councilor Farmer,
Yes.
Mayor Guerrero,
Yes.
Councilor Tucci,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Burisma,
Yes.
Mayor, there's 5 yes votes.
Okay, we got 5 yes votes, so we will go ahead and move forward with this. I will convene a small group of 3 individuals to start the process itself. Do we have any volunteers to want to join me on this?
I would.
Councilor Farmer,
I would be willing to as well.
Deputy Mayor Burisma, and myself. The 3 of us, and we'll touch base and see what we can do next. All right, well, thank you for that. Congratulations, maybe it's in order since it's kind of like almost getting to the next stage there. Up next, we have interim city manager candidate assessment. Discusses an interim city manager candidate assessment proposal. Okay, possible action on this item. Mr. City Manager, give us a brief update on how they were books.
So, as council just discussed, one of the firms that had submitted a formal proposal for a full recruitment process, one of the additional services that they notified the city they will provide is essentially that vetting process that some council members just were speaking of, a vetting process to interview the internal applicant, interview council members, and then work to deliver a report on the candidate's strengths as well as areas where they may have less familiarity or less experience, and those may be areas the council will look at how to best support that individual in being successful in the role. In their experience, it's not unusual for cities to have an internal, department head. As council members have noted this evening, department heads have familiarity with the city, its processes, and with council and with the community. So it's not uncommon at all for that to be the direction that the city takes. But in most cases, those internal department heads have not had exposure to the full scope of responsibilities of city administration. And so this is a way for both parties to kind of chart out how they're going to approach the first several months that they're working together and make sure there are no surprises along the way. And so they offer to complete that vetting for the city and provide that report.
Council, questions on the sources that this agency is asking us to consider?
Mr. City Manager, is there cost associated with this vetting process?
Yes, they quoted a fee of $18.50 and certain expenses, certain travel and
This is my last.
travel, yes, travel time, if they, to come on site at $65.
Additional questions or comments? Councilor Stucci, questions or comments on this agenda item?
No, sir, no questions or comments.
Okay, I did read what Prof is suggesting, and it sounds like it would definitely be a good tool for not only our interim city manager to have as a tool to be able to grow in specific areas, but also for council to say, okay, we see some areas that need improvement and some areas that is great. So personally, I would want to see that if it was my situation to know where I need to grow and be more of an expert in specific areas. So I would definitely support us spending a little bit of money to make sure that we set this individual for success. No additional comments. Do I have a motion, or do we choose not to spend I think it's $18.50 what I heard?
Well, I'll make a motion that we go with, I believe it says up there, the Prothman Company, and commit to spending the $18.50 for the vetting process, and get things started off on the right foot.
Second.
Okay, motion by Deputy Mayor Boardman, second by Councilor Hicks, that we accept the city manager evaluation, proposal from Hoffman for 1850 plus the travel expenses, if I heard correctly. Is there any debate on this item? Hearing no debate, can we get a roll call, please?
Councilor Hicks,
Yes.
Councilor Farmer,
Yes.
Mayor Guerrero,
Yes.
Councilor Tucci,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Burisma,
Yes.
Mayor, there's 5 yes votes.
Motion passes. Thank you, council. Up next, we have items. This is
Just one, point of clarification on that, is this, unlike most agreements that the council authorizes, where you're designating the city manager to execute and administer as the executive, in this instance, this will be an agreement between council and Providence, because that's really where the relationship is, that's the business relationship. So you're authorizing the mayor to enter that agreement in this instance. Just want to make sure.
clarify that. I did see that they have that section in mind, so I wasn't sure if that was the case, but thanks for the clarification. But we will all get the report, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay,
it'll be a full report to council.
okay, thank you. All right, up next we have items from council members, mayor's appointments for boards and commissions. I don't have any at the moment, no applications. So we'll move on to our next section, which is council request status report. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Jackie. Just one, note to add on the record. I think on the agenda, we had noted under appointments, no, I'm sorry, it's under C. Okay. Sorry, my error, I was trying to think where we had noted the announcement of council members' resignation. That's all right. All right, council request status report. The main items that have updates for this evening. Councilor Hart, there were 2 items actually that Councilor Hart had put on the list, the spring cleanup, and Finance Director Alvin and Planning Supervisor Shuttleworth have been providing updates. We've also been providing updates through the weekly briefs that the voucher program is underway. Director Alvin plans to share more of an update on that during her department head report out on the number of vouchers received so far. There are also plans in the early stages of preparation for a fall cleanup that will be a more efficient style where residents can actually come to Buffalo Central Park and drop off items to be disposed of. And the item on the speed signs, we consider that as a result of your council action tonight on the budget amendment. You approved the purchase of 2 additional speed signs by the Public Works Department, which will be used to enhance and increase our speed monitoring program. So we have that going on. See, has any of the others there, Director Fisher, do you have any updates on any other items?
I don't. We haven't heard anything back yet on the water tower. Councilor Farmer brought up earlier, so I think we're good.
Sorry.
Finance Director may have an update on that, so.
Chase actually came in today, at City Hall. He was having trouble, getting the business license application and wanted some clarification on that. He has obtained his UBI, so that's the first step. He is in the process, so I've given him all the information he needs to assist. I've also let him know that if he needs more information, to come back in and I'll point him in the right direction. So he's starting his process. Very pleased that he's doing this, and so that's kind of where we're at with Chase.
Thank you.
Mr. Casey, as far as the police reserves, is that a current number as far as 4 active reserves and 7 individuals that have applied currently?
Don't know off the top of my head. Chief, Chief, do you have an update on this? The figures on the report were 4 active reserves as well as 7 applicants. Do you have an update on that?
Yeah, kind of an informal one. We still have the 4 active reserves. I guess they're semi-active. They're not really, they haven't been very responsive. And based on the new laws and restrictions, we are seriously considering disbanding that program. One of the hardest things to maintain is training for the reserves and the things that they will be, what they could be subjected to. So we have been roundtabling that, and many departments have already abandoned theirs, or disbanded theirs, or they're in the process of doing that now. So we are more than likely in the same boat, going to follow suit.
Well, that would be unfortunate if we decide to scrap it. Also, this is something that would definitely be helpful for future recruits to be able to have a pool of qualified or semi-qualified or almost ready to hit the ground running. Personally, I would like to see it go away. Obviously, I know there's restrictions and there's a lot of changes going on, but even before there was obviously restrictions on what could be done, and we're still able to make it work. So personally, I would like to see it go away. There's a lot of value there, and definitely would like to see it continue.
Yeah, we're definitely looking at it pretty strongly. There were some training requirements that, again, we can't force these folks in. They are volunteers, so there are training requirements that were not met last year, which completely goes against the agency through CJTC. So it's definitely something that we're grappling with in-house as well. So we're still on the table, and we are still talking about it internally, and we'll be talking with our attorneys about it as well, because they're definitely going to have some weigh in on that.
Hey, Council, any additional items you'd like to see on the council request status report? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is going to be other reports, announcements, and questions by council. And anyone? Okay, we'll start with Councilor Hicks.
Yeah, with the Senate passing 1310, police are no longer allowed to clear the scene. I want to know if we can arm 2 of our firefighters or EMSs, level 3 holsters, vest, have to be JOTC certified on range. But we're sending them out blind right now, and there's no backup for them until something happens, and then it's too late.
I don't know the answer, if they're allowed to do that or be armed in that way, or.
Other states do, I'm not sure on Washington.
Yeah, it's okay, even Washington state laws, I'm just not aware of any program that is arming firefighters and.
So I don't know if 619 passed, but 619, Senate Bill 619 would allow it, but I don't know if that passed or not.
We'll research that and get back to council.
Any additional reports, announcements, and/or questions?
I've got a couple, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, sir.
A couple of months ago, I reported graffiti on and I don't know whether it's an announcer's booth or whatever at the Babe Ruth Fields, I guess they are, over at Southfield Park. I just drove by there today. I was ashamed of what I saw. I don't know whether we cleaned it and it's back again, but there is graffiti there, and it is doesn't look well for the city of Sunnyside to have a building in our park with graffiti all over.
Yeah, we've made several attempts to get a hold of the Calverton president. That is their concession stand to maintain. We've taken care of our graffiti. They're having trouble getting parents to come and abate and cover up the graffiti. So I was on leave last week. I did speak with somebody else in the community that had concerns, and the plan was to try to make contact with them one more time. There is a provision in our code that allows us to cover up graffiti and then back charge the responsible party. And so, I will make that attempt again tomorrow, and if we get no response, we'll go ahead and mitigate, the graffiti and take care of it.
Yeah, I would appreciate that.
To put them on notice that they will be expected.
It's degrading to the city to see that. The other one I have, and I may call it wrong, but the Economic Development Committee, we have no members on it. I think it's a very important committee for the city of Sunnyside. I don't know whether us as council members should go out and recruit people to be on this committee or what, but I think it's something that we need to do, and the sooner we do it, the better.
If you have individuals who are interested, I think it is an application that would definitely be helpful. That way we have a pool of candidates to look at. I think at one point or another, we got some, an email with some of the qualifications or individuals we're looking for. So if you have somebody out there who might be interested, by all means.
Yeah, and I think maybe we ought to, I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't even know about it. If we could do some kind of an advertising campaign, to make merchants, aware of it. As a matter of fact, it could even go out maybe in the, water bill. Just a brief announcement in our water bill, saying that we're looking for people.
I think also we have, several social media pages, because we can start there, you know, kind of like, that would be the most economical approach, and be able to hopefully get some eyeballs on it and get some people interested, as well as the, you know, we have a mailer insert down the road in the water bill, that would be helpful as well.
Yeah. You know, the Rotary Club, a lot of those people are business owners. You know, if we start hitting some of these service clubs, and they probably don't even know it exists. So I think we need to, sell it, and then I think we need to back it up and support it.
Yeah, my comments are going to be very much the same as Mr. Farmer's. This is a committee that, well, obviously you yourself, Mr. Mayor, said that you don't have any applicants for any of the openings, and it's a committee that we established some time ago, and we have not had anybody apply for it. And last year, I think we had a valid excuse for not really pushing on these things as much, but I think this is a committee that needs to get filled, and it would do us as a city a lot of good to get some people with vision, thinking about our economic development. Council can't do this all by ourselves, and city staff has got plenty to do already to add something like that to the staff. It's not their purview, but those of us who live in this city, I think, have a responsibility as citizens here to take some steps, and we've got some talented individuals in Sunnyside. And if we can get them committed to this, I think it can do us a lot of good. So I definitely concur with Mr. Farmer.
And, obviously, everyone got the email about, Councilor, Henry, resigning because of his, residency, status. So we'll be looking at, I'm not sure, will you have an answer for us tonight as far as what options we have for filling that?
Yeah, well, this is partial, so.
Mr. Mayor?
Doing your report or
During city manager report.
Councilor Hicks? Councilor Rasucci, yes?
Are you done with, council input?
Not yet, go right ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. I didn't want to interrupt anyone, so, but it sounded like you were moving on, and I wanted to make sure that I had an opportunity to publicly thank the Sunnyside Fire Department and Yakima County Fire District 5 for the tremendous send-off that they gave my father-in-law, Captain Ron Holhalter, this weekend. It was a wonderful ceremony, and they need to be commended for the job that they did, because they did an outstanding job, and they made the family feel very, very good. So on behalf of the Holhalter family, I want to thank everyone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Rasucci, and, Mr. Master, you will cover that in your reports, okay? Or do you want to go now?
Council, it's your discretion.
We'll do a little bit later then, so we'll leave this for council members, reports, announcements, or questions. Any additional reports, announcements, or questions from council? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is going to be upcoming council meetings. Mr. City Manager.
All right, coming up next will be a workshop on August 2nd. City clerk and I spoke today. We realized there's a typo in your packet. the two action items was, they were actually supposed to be on the August 9th agenda. So the workshop will be, just discussion items. We'll continue the conversation with you around, American Rescue Plan Act, potential allocations, and continue to brainstorm and develop some of those ideas, start refining. We also anticipate a kind of a kickoff discussion around the 2022 budget process, which will be getting underway shortly. And so, this will be kind of an orientation, just a reminder, these are the key process steps that are involved. And then, they've been looking for some background on the current fireworks ordinance and its enforcement, and police and code enforcement are working on that. Then August 9th, next regular meeting, we hope to have ready the two items coming out of the fire department. One is a billing services adjustment contract amendment, and the second is proving to be a little more complicated. This is the Department of Natural Resources Wildfire Interlocal Agreement. Council may recall, we just entered last year a 3-year agreement with the Department of Natural Resources for wildland fire protection services. The DNR issued a new contract model this year and asked us to act on it. We've had it reviewed. They've been doing this with many cities, or most cities. It seems to be a statewide action. There are some adjustments, primarily in the sections around indemnification and billing processes. And so we are wanting to make sure that the department, both finance and fire, have time to really understand the changes, and also we're having it reviewed by our insurance authority to make sure we understand the changes to indemnification that the DNR is proposing. So that's why we deferred it off of, originally we were hoping to do it tonight. We deferred it off of that while we get those questions answered, and so that'll come back with August 9th. And I think that's as far as I've got. We do have an executive session planned, a short one. Just bring the council's attention to a matter that come up related to a complaint against a public officer. We'll discuss that in executive session.
All right, up next, we have items from city manager department head. Mr. City Manager.
All right. So I'll start with the information we received regarding council's options for filling the vacancy. You actually do have a fair amount of discretion under the law in terms of how fast or how slow we move. So we first contacted the county elections office just to make sure we understood the impacts or implications of his resignation leading into the upcoming November general election. Under state law, the county elections office cannot remove Mr. Henry from the ballot. He'll be on the ballot in November unless there's a court order to do so, and they didn't, I don't have the details on the circumstances where a court might order that, but otherwise, they will leave him on the ballot. That would leave it then to the voters in District 1 as to make a choice as to who would fill that seat. If in November, Mr. Henry still receives more votes than his opponent, then he is considered elected again. However, his resignation would then take effect, and that would then create a vacancy that council could fill by soliciting applicants from who reside in District 1, and then select someone who would then serve until the next general city election in November 2023. If his opponent receives the most votes in November, then that individual can fill the vacancy as soon as the election is certified, and then get sworn in to serve their full 4-year term in January of 2022. If, however, council chooses to fill the position before the election, a couple scenarios, kind of similar to the above, take place. Council appoints someone, and if former Councilor Henry receives the most votes from the voters in his district, then council's appointee is immediately unseated and removed. Council would then have to fill the vacancy created by Councilor Henry's resignation by appointing someone else, presumably, to fill the seat until November of 2023's election. If council fills the vacancy with his opponent in the election, and the opponent wins the election, then they continue in the seat. If council fills the vacancy with someone other than the opponent on the ballot, and the opponent wins the election, then they unseat your appointee, and you go forward. So you can, pursue any one of, several paths. The last council vacancy, which was in District 3, council ultimately, after discussion, elected to provide about I believe, if I remember correctly, 45 days? I think that's correct. A 45-day application period to solicit individuals interested in serving from District 3, and then council evaluated the applications that came in and made an appointment. If council were to follow a similar timeline at this point, you would be making an appointment in early September. So you don't have to do 45 days. I don't remember if there was, if you learned there was one minimum.
No, 30, 45, 30 or 45 was the minimum, and then up to 90 days.
Okay, so we think it was 30 days minimum application period, up to 90.
Any questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I've done this quite a few times. I believe I appointed you, Mr. Mayor, and the deputy mayor as well. So I believe you're wrong in the sense that, I mean, council could take action tonight and fill the vacancy. The law actually is gives us a lot of control, but we're making that decision on behalf of the voters because they can't make that decision. So it's important for us to be mindful of that when we do make the decision. And I'll be honest with you, Mayor, if we appoint anyone else but Mr. Henry's opponent, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And I'll leave it at that, sir.
Thank you for those comments. Councilor?
I think that was if we had the application period, as we were told you needed to have a certain time. If you choose not to have an application period and just make an appointment, make an appointment, I think that is, as far as we know, that's permissible.
Mr. Mayor, I think it would save a lot of work if we appointed the opponent to fill the rest of the term, and then if the election turned out to where he lost, then go through the appointment process as we talked about. But as of right now, I think that is the only logical, in my opinion, the only logical decision to make, is just to go ahead and appoint Mr. Beeler for the remainder of the term.
If anybody ran against then it would be a write-in campaign. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, but they would still have to submit to the county auditor that they were going to conduct a write-in campaign.
Correct.
But they would have until election, or a few days before election, I would imagine, not the cutoff of May 2nd or so.
Yeah, we'd have to double check that with the county election director, so how late they can put in the write-in campaign, but, yeah, her presumption was that, her initial, response was based on the assumption that council would let the voters decide, so we had to kind of follow up to get, well, what happens if council acts sooner?
Well, I tend to agree that the most logical thing is to appoint the candidate who is running for the office, the one who is left. There are a couple of advantages to that. We could leave the seat vacant, but then we're coming into the budget process in the next few months, and having everybody's voice there, in as many voices as possible to do the best job, I think is extremely important. And I remember my first budget process, and it was kind of a shock to my system, appointing somebody to step into office, get sworn in, and right away, here's our budget. What do you think? Is going to be really tough. I don't envy the person in that position, but I do think that the person who's filed for the office should be the one that we should most seriously consider. Has anyone contacted that individual? No.
I spoke to Mr. Beeler this weekend.
But he is aware.
Yeah, he is aware, yes.
Okay.
I tried contacting him for LTAC.
Oh, that's right. He's a member of both.
I see.
So, Mr. Mr. Casey, what will be the next step, from council, and do we put it in the next, agenda to, for us to make an appointment, or what was the next step for us, since it sounds like we're leaning towards, appointing the challenger to the seat?
So you could either schedule it on the next agenda, or as Councilor Restucci pointed out, is the fact that council is considering the fact of Mr. Henry's resignation was posted tonight, it's different. The only consideration I've found is unless Mr. Beeler's been contacted and had a chance to prepare, council may want to wait for the next meeting, just to, make sure that the mayor or someone can do that outreach formally.
So as an objection, we'll add it to our next agenda then.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Okay, I'll try to reach out to him and know where he's at, so I'll try to stop by when he's in to see how he feels about it. If he wants to jump right in, or if he wants to wait until, election's over, what's his desire, obviously. I agree, having more voices, more heads in the actual budget process would definitely be, helpful, so.
Mr. Beeler told me, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Beeler told me this weekend that he's ready to serve whenever council asks him.
Perfect, and that should be an easy process then. Thank you.
But you're gonna have a vacancy on your planning commission now, Mr. Mayor.
It's a domino effect usually when it's one of those situations, but I think it's a good one. Mr. Beeler has been, involved with me for quite a long time, and I think he has a good understanding how everything works in the city, so I think it will be a good addition to the city council.
And just to clarify, Mr. Beeler is currently serving on the lodging tax advisory.
That is true.
He's a planning commissioner. You appointed him the planning commission, didn't you, Mr. Mayor, or was it Mayor Hart that appointed him the planning commission?
That was someone else that we appointed to the planning commission. I don't believe he is in the planning commission.
Yeah, Mr. Shuttleworth is shaking his head. Mr. Beeler is not serving on the planning commission.
He is on LTAC.
He's on LTAC?
Yes.
He's on LTAC.
Okay, I put him on LTAC. That's a while ago.
Yeah.
I thought he was on the planning commission.
Not that I'm aware, it really seems to say that he's not on, planning commission, so we should be in good standing as far as the recollection. But yeah, we'll definitely reach out to him. It sounds like he already did, and then he's on board, so I'll touch base with him hopefully tomorrow, and then we'll go from there.
Just one, two other general updates. One, just an update on where we're at with COVID-19. As of tonight, we've reached 32,679 cases. We had 82 more cases over the weekend. Infection rates here have doubled in the last 2 weeks. We currently have 24 residents hospitalized, which is our highest level since February, and one patient is currently intubated. Unfortunately, another resident passed away over the weekend, bringing our total COVID-related deaths to 431. About 40% of Yakima County residents have been fully vaccinated. New infections are rising across the country. We are starting to see jurisdictions resume restrictions or reimpose restrictions. Some of the largest counties, Los Angeles County, Park County, reimposed mask mandates indoors. The state of California announced it will require all state employees and all healthcare workers to show proof of COVID-19 vaccination or get tested weekly under new rules that will take effect in August. Here in Washington, cases are surging in the Tri-Cities, which now have some of the highest case rates and hospitalizations on the West Coast. And health officials in response in King, Snohomish, Pierce, Kitsap, Clallam, San Juan, Grace Harbor, and Jefferson counties all issued guidance within the last few days urging all persons to wear masks indoors in all public spaces, regardless of vaccination status. And we talked about earlier during the agenda, I'm begun wrapping up my meetings and activities in preparation for stepping down effective August 15th. My last day in the office is going to be August 9th, and then I'm taking a little vacation time, so August 9th council meeting will be final meeting. With that, I'll turn it over to department heads. Start with Director Fisher.
Yeah, I've got a quick update on the Midville Road project. They have completed the northbound lanes. They've applied the first lift of asphalt. They have started working on the stormwater improvements, to help the drainage off the road into the swales. And then they'll start to, the process, they'll move all the traffic over to the northbound and set of turn lanes, and they'll start grinding out the southbound, lanes to Bentonville. They're moving right along, they're ahead of schedule, which is great news. Haven't heard a lot, the first week or so, we had a couple calls from some of the local businesses there, and one homeowner just with access. We've got those worked out. It's been pretty quiet for the most part. So we're pretty excited about our progress. That's all I have.
Councilor Fisher, the swells, I remember at one point they talked about getting rid of the grass and just putting rock. Is that gonna happen at the same time, or is that gonna be separate?
We tried to kind of fly under the radar with TIB on that, and they allowed us, they would pay for the outfalls, which the curb knockouts, the outfall into the swells, but they would not pay to remove the grass or remove it, because it's a roadway preservation program as well, we're not stormwater. So we were lucky to have them on these, because they do want to get the water off the roadway. So that was kind of the bridge to get the stormwater outfalls paid for, that they will not take care of as well. So I thought with Jay Hester, we're going to kind of, once the road's finished and completely paved and done, we'll kind of systematically start working down each side and start taking grass out and placing rock. So we'll do that like to do it as city crew, but we may come back to council to see if we might get it done more expeditiously, maybe to hire that out and have that done a little bit quicker. Otherwise, it'll probably take us a couple seasons to get through it. About 3 miles of swells, so it's a lot of work.
On both sides of the street too,
Yeah.
so.
Correct. Fair trouble?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank all of you for your vote of confidence in me. It feels really good to have your support, and I do fully support having Crossman do a background on me. And like you said, I think it would be a good idea and professional growth just for me to know the areas that I need to work on and the areas that I'm strong in. And hopefully that comes back as really good in budget and finance, right? So I just have a few items that I want to bring up. One of them is tonight when you pass the Allen Road contract, that is already in the budget amendment, so it was a part of what you passed tonight, the budget amendment, so we won't be coming back for more money. Basically, you've already passed that tonight. I just want to clarify that. The utility moratorium ends at the end of September. I'm not sure if any of you know what that is, that we have been under the direction of Governor Inslee to not shut off anyone's water for non-payment. So we've been looking at the options we have, and under the ARPA money, we are allowed to provide utility assistance. So we're doing one thing right now. Jackie, I emailed you a copy of the flyer. Would you be able to put it on the screen?
I can't open Outlook here.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Well, you'll be getting your utility bill on Friday, so you will see this. This is a billing insert, and it really just says utility moratorium ends. And what does this mean? This means potentially your water could be shut off on the 12th of October. We wanted to give people enough time to contact us so that we can get a payment plan for them started, and they can start making those payments, or give us enough time to identify the ARPA money that we could use and the criteria that we would be able to use to let people get their utility bill caught up. So I wanted to make sure that you all knew about that. You may get questions from citizens on, well, what's the city going to do? And really what needs to happen is I need to put together a program for the ARPA money and let you guys go through it and see if it's something that you would like to do. Right now, we have about 300 customers that are behind on their utility bill, so it would be potentially a big help to people. They would have to prove that they were lower income. There are some guidelines that we can follow. It's usually the HUD guidelines. Oh, there we go. So this is the flyer, and you'll see anything that I produce out of my office will be in English and Spanish, and we are making sure that people have the information they need, and we'll have them visit our website. Just because I'm thinking a lot of this, we'll be pushing to the website.
Director, just, council may have noticed the third item in the sample projects under the ARPA sample list that we gave you, describes that kind of the utility assistance grant program and some of the considerations that Director Alba was mentioning, that was why that was, write-up is already in there, because we were anticipating that might be something council would want to act on. So that write-up is there for you to consider in the sample request.
I was talking to another mayor recently, they were talking about using some of the lost revenue from shut-offs and all those items as part of getting additional funding for ARPA, kind of the smaller granular items. Is that something we are thinking about potentially including to be able to have a bigger pot of those funds to use, put in the general fund for whatever use we want? I mean, I don't know how hard that would be.
If we were to use, lost revenue, I'll be really honest with you, right before I left for the conference, I found a more comprehensive, GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association, put out a worksheet that is basically you go through 3 years of revenue, and then you take your current year, and then you take your COVID year, and it's very complicated. We actually did not have any lost revenue. If you look at it, we actually gained revenue during COVID. So with us being able to plug in, oh, we've got lost revenue, in reality, I don't think we do. But one of the things that I need to do is go back, because I wanted to kind of see where my numbers were. I'm gonna go back basically with a fine tooth comb and make sure that I'm making every spot available that's supposed to be there and not put anything in that's not supposed to be. So I'll be doing that, and then I'm gonna have some of the other finance directors review my work, because I think that that's important for them to kind of interpret, because this lost revenue calculation is massive. And we did not, I mean, our sales tax dollars came in so high that it just really kind of blew us out of the water on where we lost money in other places. So, and I've talked to other cities, and I've had other cities that said the same thing, that their sales tax really brought them through. So I don't think that we will have lost revenue. I think that we probably are going to be looking at, we need to find uses that are available under the ARPA rules. The next thing that I wanted to bring up is the community cleanup vouchers. As of today, we have issued 223 actual vouchers. And I'm so proud to say that of those, 170 were placed online, completely by email, returned by email, so there was no paper involved. So only paper on the end of the user that printed their authorized voucher out to go to the dump. So we think this program is working very well. We will be discussing doing a fall cleanup. I have a feeling this is going to be better than the fall cleanup for our citizens. The only ones that I think we would have a disparity would be the ones that maybe didn't have a truck or something. But the way I've really been thinking about it, it is so nice for people to go when they can and when they have the time, not on our schedule on a Saturday that they may not be able to make it. And this is going to be cost effective for us, because the garbage is what we will be paying for, no staff time. Our staff that is issuing the vouchers are already on the clock, and they're just doing it for their regular duty. So normally when we have a community cleanup, we have about 8 people that come in on a Saturday and work overtime, and we pay those overtime dollars. So this will, in some ways, save us money. So it'll be something for us to really consider. And, you know, in your talking to people, you know, ask them if there have been any, you know, hiccups or things like that, because I would like to have that feedback. And if we find that there are people that aren't able to do this, then I think it would be appropriate to reach out to the service groups and see if they can provide some assistance for people that can't make it to the dump. I mean, I think that would be highly appropriate. So that's my spiel on community cleanup. And very last item, if you could please bring your laptops to the workshop next Monday. Our IT department will actually be here. He's going to attend the meeting. All of your laptops need a critical update. We've all had them done at City Hall and around the city at all of our computers. So we will be doing an update, and then if you have password problems or anything that you'd like to discuss with him, you could do that at that time as well. Okay?
So I just want to point out that I went through the process of getting the voucher for the cleanup, and it was quite easy. I mean, scan the code and you get to the website, you plug in your information, and, you know, a day or two later, you get the voucher, you just print it off, and it was quite easy, to be honest with you. Probably won't use it, I was just curious how the process was gonna look in case somebody asked me, and if, you know, and at least that way I know what it looks like, and if they ask me, I can answer some questions, but I really liked it, you know, I could see potentially some older individuals who might be, you know, not so comfortable with technology, might have a hard time with it, but I think we have such a youth-driven community in Sunnyside. I mean, our age, I think it said that the median age was like, what is it, 20, 30, 20?
Median age is in the mid-twenties.
So we have a large, obviously, demographic that is computer savvy, and hopefully help their parents, grandparents to be able to help them with that process. But at the end of the day, it was a really easy process to go through.
So for the slower people like me and a lot of people I know, they can go to City Hall and get one, or?
Yes, they can get one at, either counter at City Hall, either on the planning side or on our side. And really honestly, it's the one thing that I think has come out of this that has been very beneficial. Our code enforcement officer I've spoken to, and when he's out in the field, he can pull it up on his phone and assist someone to apply for it. And then they can, I mean, like, we're actually helping people do it online, so we can get them their voucher, especially if they've got a need and he's been over there trying to get them to clean something up. It is a good tool for him.
Because I know a lot of people, you know, I have to go help them set their VCR clocks, and they're not tech savvy.
Did you say VCR?
Yes,
VCR. I thought
Not
I heard you wrong.
DVD,
I thought I heard you wrong.
Trying to remember the last time I saw one.
They haven't turned that page yet.
I believe Chief Pasqualero, are you still on the call? Any further updates?
No, just some additional reform training that's been going on. That's been pretty consistent for us now for several weeks. We have another 3 hours tomorrow, and then another 8 hours Friday with the attorneys coming in. So it's been pretty much our world here lately, and creating some avenues of approach and throwing out scenarios, and it's been challenging for everybody, but we're getting through it.
Thank you. Maria? That concludes the department head report.
All right, here no business. This is verbiage correct. Okay, there being no further business to come before council, and without objection, this meeting is adjourned at 7:56 p.m.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.